Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Please say hi in the chat box. The subject of today's discussion topic is using common sense, logic, and joining the dots when it comes to trading, and more so, probably more importantly, with investing, but investing stroke trading, and how I decide which sector to focus on and kind of the information I'm using to make those decisions. Hi, Marcel. I forgot. I will send you the link for our session later. Hi, Mike. Another one, Aussie. Who else just snuck in? Everybody in the naughty corner if you've just arrived. Rohit. Morning to you. Another one of mine. Hi, Rohit, another Singaporean. So, logic, common sense, working out what sector to focus and all the rest of it, and then things that you can't plan for. And yesterday, Chris, unfortunately, was in a couple of CAD trades. Having said that, hopefully he had half the risk, because if you take two CAD trades and they both lose, and you've gone in full risk, now you've lost twice as much as you ruled. So hopefully he did not do that. And as he said, he managed to catch the CAD Swissy in a small profit. But what happened yesterday is he said it was a giant curveball. And Ashley answered the reason why in a post a little later, Mr. Trump, President Trump. And there's going to be more and more shenanigans with Mr. Trump, President Trump. Sure, at the moment there are his various picks for the cabinet. And then Gertz already is gone, no doubt. Some of the senators will be pushing back, some of the GOP senators pushing him against some of his other selections. So you can't plan for that. It's unfortunate, but the one thing you can plan is to control the risk. So as I said, oh crikey, if you hang on, I need to turn the alarms off on here, because it's all going nuts again and it'll be crypto. Right. How do I turn the alarm off? Anybody know? I just want to turn the sound off. If anybody knows, just stick it in the chat box, please. So you can't predict that, but what you can do is control the drawdown. So in the event of a sudden unpredictable thing that nobody could allow for, make sure that you have covered yourself. So that's point number one. But then on a more positive note, let's have a look at things that you can plan for. And this is so just a bit out of sequence is this, but this is showing you a trade I took on the pound the other week. And I actually took this trade on the pound because the latest British government, unbelievably, are worse than the last lot. And in fact, they are terribly worse than the last lot. And I took this trade on the budget day. And I'll show you in a moment again on MT4 where I got in. It was in as ever for multiple reasons. But one of the big reasons why I was in it and why I stayed in it as long as I have is this new government that's come in is absolutely, utterly useless. It turns out that the woman who is currently the Chancellor, that's the financial director, who on her CV had said that she had 10 years experience at a bank as an economist, turned out that she was working on the help desk for 2 or 3 of those years, and she was doing a university course for a year. So basically she has, let's say, exaggerated her experience on her CV, and the budget that she's just come out with is insane and is supposedly to boost trade and employment, and it's having exactly the opposite effect. So the reason why I took the trade was partly technically, it was a very good M2 setup, but the reason why I felt so confident with it was because of the fundamentals again. And this is all this thing about joining up the dots. And as Zoe says, yeah, you couldn't make it up. Brendan says, Great Britain is just terrible. I can see why you moved to Lanzarote. To be perfectly honest, Brendan, I was talking to a business partner of mine yesterday. He's just finally going to leave the UK. And I decided I was leaving in 1997. We finally left around 2000. Because it took 2 or 3 years to plan, and we sold the business and we bought some houses for income and stuff. But I could see that the place was going to go down the toilet. And a lot of it was to do with people manipulating the race relations I employed 20 odd staff and 20 odd subcontractors, and it just became a nightmare. And I just thought that was the way it was going. So I'm so glad I got out when I did. But I look at what's going on now, and it's absolutely, it's soul destroying, really. But anyway, so from a financial point of view, however, you can use the knowledge to your advantage. Then this was in more detail about what Trump has done. So Trump, as Ashley pointed out, is putting tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China. Well, it's not a surprise because he'd already said that he was going to do it. So looking at the way that the USD is pulling back against the CAD today, it was an extraordinary reaction to supposedly surprise news. But these things happen. You have to move on.com. Now, this is MicroStrategy. I've shown you this before. And the reason I'm showing it now is that this is Bitcoin. The reason I'm showing it now is that I was talking in this presentation last night and saying to people, look, common sense, people lose track of what's going on when they look at charts, and they also get too emotionally wrapped up in things. And so what I was explaining is, and I explained this in the session 2 weeks ago, there's one or two of you in the room here now that have held on, hodled, as it's called in the crypto world. HODL, H-O-D-L, stands for hold on for dear life, because it's a wild ride. But some of you hodled all the way through the crash in 21 until now. And if you imagine that you had bought Bitcoin at 8,000, as we did when we started, in 10s and 20s and 30,000s, then when it starts getting up near, last time we were together was, I think it was in here. And I was saying that it looked as though it was going to go to 100 grand. And it was logical to a degree it would push to 100 grand because the market makers, the euphoria of it all, markets want to go up anyway, BlackRock being involved, public suddenly starting reading the press, so they now want to get involved. It really kind of made sense. And I talked about this with the S&P in the summer. I said at the time I thought it would break the all-time high, and I thought that it would hit 6,000, which it did. Again, a kind of logic, because all of these markets really are designed to go up. And equally, this pullback now is to be expected, because anybody who bought originally went through all that pain and now has seen their investment finally pay off is clearly going to take some profit up here. Now, I was going to take half of my Bitcoin off, and I decided not to. I have decided to take some profits from some of the smaller stuff, and I have cashed out 20% of Bitcoin. And also for me, I have a very pleasant situation by being tax resident here in Portugal. If you hold crypto for more than 12 months, you don't pay tax on it. So coming up to the year end, for me, that was another part of the puzzle. But everything that I've got now is bought and paid for from back down here. But this was perfectly understandable for this to happen. Now, prior to the ETFs and the big funds coming in, I always expected that this would tank to 70 very quickly. So what my original plan was to sell half of it and then buy it back in again down here cheaper. I suspect that this time, I never say this time could be different. I suspect this time 80 will be the level. Could be wrong, but 80, if we start to look in terms of, well, what's gone on in the past, that clearly is 70. With no pre-level of being up at this level before, but that's where it stopped before. 55 EMA is coming up behind it. I think I had the trend line the other day. I was looking in here. So here as well. So intersection, my usual thing, M2. Fibs don't really help me on this. I mean, I could go back and fib it back to where I will if I do that. Wow, bang. And again, with fibs, you're trying to make it fit. You're trying to think, well, where is everybody else looking? Well, in that case, 80, yeah, I stand by 80. I would be interested personally to buy some more at 80. But it makes a kind of sense and a kind of logic. So, just be mindful when you're in anything to be making a plan in advance what you're thinking of doing. Now, the other thing I said last week, fortnight ago, the amount of people have suddenly contacted me from, I haven't heard from for a year or more, chat, and I'm thinking, come on, get to the point. I'm really busy. Bitcoin, what do you think about Bitcoin, man? And it's like, when I was screaming at people in the summer last year when it was 25 grand and that was the time to buy, or here I'd said in Telegram, 2 months ago, I said 53 was the place to buy. major previous support resistance, 55 EMA. I think it was a spike on the 78.6 fib as well. That was the place to buy. It's doubled, and that's doubled in 3 months. That was the time to buy. Now, you might be late to the party, and you might be thinking, well, what should I do? None of this is financial advice as ever, but what I do is I take profit from some of the smaller stuff and have been moving it into Bitcoin. So the last actual purchase I made of Bitcoin, I think, was around 70 grand, which I could never imagine at one point I would ever spend 70 grand. But that was an actual purchase. I had some cash from gold, I think it was, and I put it in. But other than that, the Bitcoin I have accrued this year has been free because I have taken the profit from some of the crazy moves on the smaller stuff and just moved it into Bitcoin. So that is one way. The other way, obviously, is you can cost average in every month. There are people on Twitter, qualified CPAs, who say just put 100 or 1,000, whatever you can afford, just buy some every month, irrespective of the price. The same theory as the stock market. Now, the other thing is, because these funds are involved now, it's not started yet, but I suspect within the next day or two, we're going to see the mainstream press saying, well, we told you, it was a tulip thing. I had a bloke that when it was at 10 grand telling me I was an idiot, and it was the tulip bubble of the 1600s. If you're not familiar with that story, you should Google it. But literally, tulip bulbs were selling for insane amounts in the 1600s. I think it was what caused the demise of the West Indian Trade Company. Anyway, I've explained many times why before I thought that Bitcoin would work, and I still have confidence in it. I think it could go to increase still to 3, 4, 5 times where it is today, but it's going to be a wild ride and it's going to pull back. But if you've missed out, have a look and think, well, where is it probably going to go next? And then on the subject of people calling me from nowhere, we have MicroStrategy. Now, I did a webinar last night for a broker, and I asked how many people had heard of MicroStrategy, and I was shocked because I think it was about 2 people put their hand up and said that they'd heard of it. But suddenly now, MicroStrategy is becoming a big story. Well, as you know, I got into MicroStrategy last year, and this is this thing that I kept banging on about, and go back through the blogs, go back through the investing one, and I kept saying is you're trying to catch the right cycle at the right time. And so now with this MicroStrategy story, when you have a look in here, it's explaining the background to it. It's explaining how people have been using it as leverage. It's explaining what Saylor has done and how he's been made so much money from all of this. But then the short sellers are starting to sniff around again because the valuation of MicroStrategy is way over the amount of Bitcoin that they hold. And I think they now hold around 300,000 Bitcoin. But we had this in the summer where, if you recall, when it got up to 200, there was a share split on this. It was actually 2,000 at this point, but 200 because the shares were split into tenths. So if you owned 1 share at $1,000, now you own 10 shares. So I'd explained at the time that the short sellers were going to come in because the price of Bitcoin at that time was around 60 grand, I think, maybe 70. And in effect, MicroStrategy's valuation was valuing it at about 180. So it was obvious the short sellers would come in. And I'd set levels to my investing group. I said I would buy again at 1350, 1150, 1050. And I also had an order in at 850, I think, and I missed it. But that was logical. And so the other day, and then going back to this thing about being in the right place at the right time, I've said this many times, I have to keep saying it because I was so spookily accurate. It is so rare, and this is probably the best trade I have ever done in terms of getting in at the right place and getting out at the right place. So this was where we got in October 23. It was actually the 23rd of October, I think, in here. So initially, I used 5 times leverage because the previous high was in here. So let's say, for math's sake, I put 10 grand in. I turned 10 grand into 50. I pulled out the 10. I took out another 10 in profit and left the balance to run. When it went back down again, I bought some more. When it came up to another top, I sold some. But then I was buying again. Now, the other day, I sent a message out to my investing group and I said, look, we're getting up here now. This was the silly move the day before. We'd had a gap and it was really getting so overvalued and so overpriced. So I sent a telegram out that I had just sold 35% of my MicroStrategy. Now, bear in mind, it was all bought and paid for anyway, because being a trader, I have taken profit on the way up. So everything's bought and paid for. And at 543, I think it was, I got out, or 542. And as proof, I shared this on Twitter and I put this in the forum. This is from one of my group, and this is from Lucy, and she got in at 48.85, and I think I was in at 32 something, and she got out at 537.64. And she said she's never really made any money on stocks before. She's 10x'd on this one, and she made literally 1,000% on it. So that was an M2 entry based on a mixture of the break of the trend line and the EMAs and the fundamentals that this company owns a load of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's just gone up. Logically, this is probably going to follow. Okay, right. I just need a sip of my tea. I haven't got Ashley with me today, so I will need a few sips of tea. Any questions on this? Okay, if you got any questions on anything, just stick them in the chat box and I will either answer them on the way through or I will come back to it. And then other things that's going on in here. We have the Führer who's in charge of the UK now, Starmer, the least popular Prime Minister in history, I think he is officially now, and he's only been doing the job for 3 months. He's pallied up with BlackRock at the same time that he is now imposing on small farmers in the UK inheritance tax problems, which means they will probably have to sell up. And recently he invited to number 10, the chairman of BlackRock, Larry Fink, was there, as was and everybody boo now and hiss because the baddie's coming on stage, is Bill Gates. Bill Gates owns 200,000 acres of farmland in America, allegedly using GMO in his crops, and allegedly animals in the US will be fed vaccines going forward. So all a little bit scary. So that's the article about Saylor. Valid point about potential shorts. I am looking to buy in again. And I do think that this has got legs, and I think that this could continue to go up for some time. However, there was an interesting article in Twitter this week, and I couldn't find it this morning. And if you're not familiar what Saylor's done, Saylor has borrowed money from institutions and wealthy individuals for 1% interest or 0% interest. But they get the option to convert those loans, those bonds into shares. And what he does is he takes in, let's say, I think his latest acquisition is 100 billion, and then he buys 100 billion of Bitcoin, which forces the price of Bitcoin up, which means that the people who've lent him the 100 billion are automatically going to make money, which has a ring to it of a Ponzi scheme, because if the value of the Bitcoin goes below the acquisition cost, and if he's still buying it now at 90 odd grand, and it dips down to 80 or below, and if it really goes, then the bondholders will want to cash out, which will exacerbate the problem. So it is a potential issue that was well explained by somebody in Twitter the other day. I think at the moment, hopefully, I think that it's not a big enough problem, but it's certainly something to bear in mind as we go forwards. And as I said, so I'll put the link to some of these articles in the blog post when we've finished. Now, on the other hand, with crypto, President Trump, who was not interested in crypto when he was previously in power, because even though he wanted a weak dollar, he obviously wanted to continue the track of the dollar being the reserve currency of the world. I think that now there has been such a growing concern about the dollar not being the reserve currency in the world in the future, and the BRICS countries and all the other things that are going on around the world, and the fact that he received a lot of money, subscriptions, contributions to his campaign fund in crypto. He and his wife have sold NFTs and made money out of crypto. His son is a holder, and the people who he is appointing to his cabinet, many of them are big crypto people. So again, joining the dots. Well, if this is the way that they're going to go, then I really want to continue to have some exposure to crypto. Which ones you choose is obviously the art. But I think he's got Vance, the vice president's got $500,000 worth of Bitcoin. Robert Kennedy Jr. has been very pro-crypto for a while, and he was actually at the Bitcoin mining conference the year before all the politicians got involved. And it wasn't just Trump that gained. Harris' campaign also received a lot of money input from crypto as well. So even if she got in, you would imagine there would have been a little more favourable towards it. And so this is a list of people he's appointed so far. And another thing that somebody's mentioned, I've seen today, somebody's on Twitter saying a lot of people have invested in Doge, and Doge is very speculative and it's very silly. But what the guy was saying is probably because Elon Musk owns X and he's probably going to make Doge one of the nominated, if not the nominated, crypto for payments within, which is what I was saying last summer. Then he's also now picked Scott Bessent, ex-pro crypto hedge fund manager, as the Treasury Secretary. So all of these are leading us to believe that crypto is going to have legs and is going to become more mainstream. I also read an interesting article the other day where the guy was saying, well, if the American government now, instead of what Biden's lot were doing a few months ago, and they were selling it all off from money, Bitcoin that they'd confiscated, what this guy was suggesting is that if Trump does as he has hinted, it's not easy to say, as he has hinted, that he's going to create a treasury of Bitcoin. If that then would drive up the price of Bitcoin to significant highs, it could be used either to then sell it and pay off a chunk of the American debt, or the author of the article was suggesting that then it could be used and staked and used to pay Medicaid. So there's all kinds of things going on in the background. Again, we're trying to join the dots up. Well, where is this going and why is it going and what's going to happen next? The next thing to think about with Trump, from stocks point of view, which stocks are likely to go up under Trump and which stocks are likely to go down. So anything that's tied to global warming and his cynicism with global warming, and I must say I share a lot of that, that kind of business would suffer. Businesses that could do well is what I'm researching at the moment. So again, be thinking about what they're going to do. Now, they said the other day, there's an article in the Financial Times saying that the dollar fell because Trump has now appointed Scott Bessent. He is actually, I think, positive to crypto, but he's a bit more old school. Whether that affected the dollar the other day, I don't know, because there's a lot of clues that, I mean, yesterday was weird because everything dropped as well as. And then another positive, yay, this gentleman is going. He's going to resign on the morning of Trump's inauguration to prevent him, well, A, squeeze the last blood out of it, and B, so he doesn't get humiliated by being sacked. This is Gary Gensler, who I believe was appointed by Biden to, if not kill crypto, certainly to slow it down. He's going, and that has had a positive impact on XRP. Now, XRP, I was talking about this in the summer. I was buying this, I mentioned it in here, and I said at the time, this is a punt. This was a bet because it depended on them beating the SEC. Now, they did win most of it, and then the SEC came along and had appealed. So they could have dragged it out for another year or more. The SEC originally wanted to fine them $2 billion. It was knocked down to 120 million, and Ripple were quite happy, willing to pay that. And actually from day one were willing to pay that. And then the SEC and some of their lawyers were accused by the judge of lying and sharp practices, have tried to appeal it. So the theory goes now that Gensler out of the way, this will get paid off and this will move forward. And Ripple's blockchain, I mentioned this in the original webinar back in 2020 that you can find inside Mentor Pro if you go under the crypto section. The Ripple blockchain is used by, I think it's Santander Bank, for their app. It is fast, it is cheap, it is revolutionizing money transfers. And another article I saw the other day that Ripple have now given all the main banks around the world their own unique code, which could well be a prelude to replacing the SWIFT system. The SWIFT system has been in place forever, where if you want to send money, if I want to send money from here to the US via the banking system, it can take 5 days and it can cost me $30 or $40 or $50 to send it. If I send Ripple, it will be there in a minute and it will cost me 5 cents. So speed and reliability and all the positives with XRP mean that this could well become mainstream. There's talk of it going to $10. There's talk of it going to $100, all sorts of figures being bandied around. But the important part of this is, if you bought this in the summer when I was talking about it, it was up 230% last week. In fact, this week. Even here, this was the breakout again. This was an M2 break of a consolidation period and the EMAs and a trend line in here. So in the last month, this is up 200%. You don't just sit on it and hope it's going to keep going. I have got an alarm set up here at 190 because the all-time high is 195. So again, anybody that's bought in here and rides all the way through this clearly is going to get twitchy when we get up here. So what I do with this is take out the original stake. I've got my money back and I've taken out 30%, I think, of the profit, and I'm going to leave the balance to run. And at the minute, it's doing a pullback. So if I've missed it or I want to buy into it again, I do the same thing as I always do. Put a fib on it. I put a trend line on it. I watch the EMAs and say, well, okay, I'm going to set a trap. If it comes back down here, 116, I would be interested to buy. I only buy crypto if it's got the potential to make a minimum 35% fairly quickly, and that's got the chance to make 40 or 60. Again, not financial advice. And I would definitely personally buy again at $1. Psychological level, previous major support resistance, 55 EMA is going to be coming up here in the next few days unless this really takes a dive now. That would be a major area for me. Whole number, 78.6 fib, trend line, previous support and resistance, that would be a no-brainer. And then Doge, this is Doge I mentioned earlier. I was buying Doge back in the summer when it was around 8 cents. I originally got into this at about 2 cents, I think. Oh, stop, please stop. It's all crypto, is this guy. So everything's dropping at the moment. You have to excuse me with this. So back to Doge. Where has it gone? Doge, from a break a month ago, was up 270%. When it got to here, I took off the original stake and half of the profit. What I've got left now is bought and paid for, on top of what I had bought and paid for before. But you don't just ride these markets forever. You have to get in the habit of taking some off the table. Yes, you might beat yourself up later on, but we have a guy, I got a private guy from Australia. He owned 100 Bitcoin in 2015, 100. And he sold them, I think they were about $500-600, and he made a fair few thousand profit when he sold them, and he was very pleased. Now, of course, he suffers the pain because it's like, oh, why did I sell them? But the point is, if he'd kept some of it, he would now be a wealthy man. So this, for me, is the whole thesis of it. If I think Trump is pro-crypto, we're going to get wild moves. But if I pick the right tokens, I can make a lot of money. And at the moment, I don't want money in fiat currencies. I don't want any of them. The euro and the Aussie, sorry, the euro and the pound, I converted into dollars the other week. I've got stuff in gold. But this is very speculative, but if you catch it right. But that's M2. M2 breakout of a major area consolidation and breaks all the EMAs. That's where I want to buy. And that's what I was doing. What else we got? On the subject of the clowns currently running the UK government, they were voted in with 9.5 million people, and they got 400 seats, I think. The Reform Party, led by Nigel Farage, got 2.5 million and got 5 seats, which is the way the system works in the UK. But so far, this morning, 2.5 million people have signed a petition on the official government website saying that they want another general election. It's not going to happen because you can't force a re-election because of them, but just to show how bad this guy is and the damage that he's doing and the idiots that he's got in place as well. I really weep for the state of the British economy. I certainly am not going to be buying British stocks, and I certainly don't want anything in the UK. Business activity shrinks for the first time in a year. They've been in 3 months. They've crippled major businesses by whacking up the tax that they have to pay. It's not good. So again, join up the dots, see what's going on, make a decision based on it. My personal bias now is I am going to focus on the US. The business community in the US, there is a lot of positivity. There is a lot of energy, as opposed to completely the opposite from the UK. And the Eurozone is strangling itself in red tape as well. And the German economy is in a dreadful state, and they are the powerhouse of Europe. So I don't want money here. I don't want money in the UK. So this is my focus. This is BlackRock. This is Larry Fink. And look, this is the idiot in charge of the UK, and it's like lambs to slaughter. He thinks he's been really smart. These are the smartest guy in the room. He isn't. Now, I put a link in I think we put it in the email today, and I put it in the forum as well. There is a Black Friday offer for TradingView. So these charts I've been showing you, I use for stocks, I use them for crypto, indices, everything I look at every day. There is an offer on at the moment. You get it at 70% off. If you use the link in the email or the forum, you also get an extra $15 to buy yourself a cup of tea. So I use it all the time. What I really like with this lot is they gave me the same offer last year and the year before. So even though I'm a current member, my my subscription was not due to run out, I think, till February, March next year. Now that I've paid again today, even though the subscription wasn't due, they've kept that, added it on, and I don't have to pay again now until April 2026. So if you've been thinking about getting TradingView, I would get it now. And somebody asked me this morning which level they would get. If you can afford the premium, I would get the premium, because with the premium, you get all the bells and whistles, you get lots more alarms. And I initially started probably on the plus. I've been a cheapskate even on the essential, and it was just very frustrating because a lot of things are hidden from you until you go on to premium. So that's worth doing. This was somebody, one of my private guys sent me a message this morning, literally from the bottom of the sea, asking me about a stock. And I ran it through this. I subscribe to this at the moment, Simply Wall Street, and it doesn't look very interesting, to be honest to me. In fact, it looks quite scary. So that's what that was about. Right. Pierre has posted his Earth and Sky, and he had a decent week with it last week. But as Ashley has pointed out of late, Ashley uses it in conjunction with M2. So look at the bigger picture first, then go on to this. It has been frustrating for periods this year, but all strategies go through periods where it's frustrating. I think the more volatility that we get with Trump, the better it will be for Earth and Sky in the new year. This was Ashley's analysis on Sunday. He's doing better than me at Forex at the moment. I mean, I am distracted and focusing elsewhere, but he had a better week than me last week. And I think he took 260 pips off the Euro Aussie and the Pound Swissy for 70. And he shared that with you and shared the video as well as. This is about my investing group. If you're interested, there is an offer on at the moment as well as. Right, on to the charts. Has anybody noticed that there are big clues that everything is due a break, a pause, or a big pullback? Alon says, even with TradingView, I find the right cycle. Yes, I have. I'm told by my daughter, who does the marketing for us, you need to shout from the rooftops. I think it's a very English thing. We're not ones for bragging and things, but I have bragging rights at the moment. Yeah, things have gone really well the last few years. If I was saying to somebody the other day, since 2020, I've made more money personally from being involved in crypto and stocks and gold than probably made more on a personal level last 4 years than the previous 10. So, yes, Zoe also says about Bitcoin that there are a lot of other big companies. Microsoft are rumored to be acquiring Bitcoin for their treasury as well. Because let's face it, what Saylor's done, why has nobody else done it? Basically, he was borrowing money for 0 or 1%. And as he said, he was putting it into an asset class that's increased on average by 170% per year, whereas the S&P on average has grown about 7 on average. So it's a no-brainer. Why the others haven't done it or others haven't done it as quickly, I do not know. Right. So any questions, stick them in there. Right. Come on. You've all been looking at charts. What have you seen? It's not on here, so the clue is not here. But what have you seen on the charts this week that was a clue that all these pullbacks were incoming? Anybody think? What can we look at? What is one of the pieces of the puzzle we look at periodically that says, this might be due a reversal? Well, the DAXI, this is the DAXI, but this isn't the clue. Brendan says lots of consolidation and massive jumps within the index funds. Yes. Zoe says double top. Yes. So that is a clue with DAXI, which is probably what Alon's referring to. And again, when the price of something sets off, as we always say, you look to the left. So the last time it set off and gets away from the EMAs, you say, well, the first place we expected it to struggle was here. Why? Because it did it loads of times in the past, and it's probably going to do it again. And it did last week or 2 weeks ago. That's where it stopped. And then last week it broke. So the resistance now becomes support. So then we say, well, okay, well, where's it going to go next? And I started looking here because I can see, well, it stopped to the pip in here, messy in here, but it was resistance, and that's where it stopped, and it's terminated now. So that's a clue. There is another clue that we are seeing on lots of things. So I'm going to push the button now. Who can answer the question quickest? What's on here that's giving you a clue? Come on. What clue on there? Thank you, Alan. Yep, and Mike as well. Well done. MacD and Ishak, well done. MacD divergence, well done. Brendan as well as. Now, Brendan, a clue in future. If you want to win the prize, don't have to write convergence and divergence. Alon sneaked in there just with MacD. MacD divergence. If you're not familiar with it, it means that we are getting higher highs here. And this one's not as exaggerated as the rest I'm going to show you. But at the same time, we're getting lower highs on MacD. And it is a clue that price is probably going to turn back down. Does it work all the time? No. But this year, it has worked on a number of occasions really well. But this was an occasion, again here, it kept going up and then it finally pulled back. So it wasn't the best indicator at the time. But that is steep divergence. And think on, we've had the euphoria over Trump. So again, this is this thing about the logic. I said to you before, I thought we would get all-time highs. I explained why I thought it was going to hit 6,000. It was logical in a way that they would push it this far. But now the PE ratio on so many stocks in the US is so overbought, it's nuts. So again, you start to think, well, if this thing drops, where would I be thinking of if I was going to buy this? I've got 61.8 fib, I've got the whole number below, I've got the 55 EMA, previous major support and resistance, and a trend line all in the same place. And the stop behind the 78.6 fib, and the potential reward to the risk of 4 or 5 to 1. It's a no-brainer. But buying here, this is where fools rush in. This is where retail rookies rush in to stocks and everything else. Could it keep going? Of course it could. But at some point, it's going to do what it always does, what everything does. It's going to come back and looking for the buyers to get involved again. NASDAQ. MACD divergence is not quite the same really here because at the moment we don't have higher highs. If we have a busy day or two, that would make a difference. But again, that's all-time highs. This was the previous all-time high. So I'd said in the summer down here, I thought that it would break all-time highs. And I think I would have to check. I'm pretty sure I actually said it would go to 2.2. And in which case I've got to 21258. I think I said 2.2, but I could be wrong. I might be claiming something there that I didn't do. This is gold. Gold dropped yesterday. Everything dropped yesterday. We had moves, and it was really bizarre because the dollar dropped, gold dropped, silver dropped, Bitcoin dropped, everything came down all at the same time, which is very unusual. And I mean, that is an almost complete engulfing candle, which suggests a bigger move down, but it's bounced off 26.05, previous major support and resistance, 61.8 fib in an uptrend. If it was going to stop anywhere, it was probably going to stop there. Silver. So silver the other week, I'd said to my lot that if I wasn't in it already, I would be a buyer at 30. Silver has lagged and gone to sleep of late. It's the 55 EMA has clearly been resistance on this. I didn't sell my silver. I kept the gold and silver I have that I buy through Bullion Vault in the UK. It's stored in a vault in Switzerland. Never touch it. But what I did do the other month is I hedged by shorting a gold and silver ETF. But I still think that this could go on for higher highs. And this was at $49 in 2012. So technically, this could still go up 70 or 80%. Brent, don't trade it. Too geopolitically sensitive. The situation in the Middle East and in Ukraine is so volatile. The general consensus seems to be that there is an oversupply at the moment. But I just keep my eye on it because I'm wanting to know where's all the big money going. The VIX is, I don't really pay attention anymore. Bitcoin. On Bitcoin and some of the indices, some of the stocks, I do use RSI. I don't use it on Forex anymore. But we had clear MACD divergence there on the daily chart. And we also have MACD divergence on RSI. And so I do, as I say, pay attention. If you look down here, it seems to be more accurate at the bottom than the top. But there, it picked the bottom to the pip. And there, it picked the bottom to the bottom of the spike. And then here also, well, not the work of art there. But in general, the buys seem to be more reliable than the sells. So anything back down 30 would tie in with my idea to buy more. Ethereum, I said to buy my trading group last week, I would be a buyer if I wasn't in it already at 30. And that popped up 10%. Ethereum's gone to sleep. What normally happens, Bitcoin goes on a run, and then people take profit, which might well be what's going on now, which is why it drops. And then it historically has gone into Ethereum. So if Ethereum was to come back into here again, I would be, personally, I'm okay because I have enough. But if I wasn't in it already, I would certainly be thinking around 30. So Swissy, it's in my blog somewhere. I showed last week how I very rarely trade this. There's MACD divergence on this as well, guys. That was a clue. But I did take a long on this last week. It's in my blog. It was an almost perfect entry again for multiple reasons, but I only really had 4 reasons on this chart. The 5th reason for this was that the euro had come up to a major area of previous support and resistance. But with the euro, I didn't have multiple reasons to take that trade. Everything's far too far away. But that became my 5th reason for taking this trade. So check out the post in the blog. Euro USD, your economy's in a mess. Again, idiots that run the thing. They're strangling themselves with red tape. They're trying to bully their way around the world and it's not working. MACD divergence at the bottom suggested a move back up. First place you would be interested would be here, but 106. But again, we need this lot down nearer or trade it off a 4-hour or go back to the USD Swissy, 8,800 solid area. And if it spikes lower, I would definitely be interested down here. Pound. So I'm still just in this trade. This was the short at the top from the UK election, the budget day. I took first amount of profit at 120 pips. I think, again, it's in the blog. I can't remember the second one where I took the most. And then I've left 10% of the trade running. It was up 500 pips. It's currently up 400. It's only 10% of the trade. I've moved the stop just above yesterday's high, hoping that this will continue. If it pulls back further, I will be looking for reasons to short this because, as we mentioned, the economy's in a mess and I can't see it getting any better. And there was MACD divergence on that as well. USD yen, not as clear for MACD, although here there was some MACD divergence going on. And really, this is an example of it not really working because there it was suggesting it would come down and it kept going up for 3 or 4 days. Yen's too far away. I've still got an order way down here. I need it to come back to a closer area. This is that CAD from yesterday. Again, very, very high percentage chance of MACD giving us a clue there. that's the overreaction. I still would want to buy the dollar against the Canadian dollar, but again, we're going to need a pullback, so I have to wait for next week. The 55 will probably be up to here by then, so that maybe give us a bit more help, and then again we would start to look to the left. So I'm anywhere around 139 for next week. AUD, MACD divergence, it spiked, and again, if you were short in this last week and it came down here, remember, I've explained this many times to you, in terms of stops and targets and things, well, here you'd think, well, the first place you would be thinking is taking some off is here because it's where it stopped the first time. But then your overall target, generally, the first time it's done this, and looking to the left, excuse me, I'm going to have to cough. Looking again to the left, it came into here. Yes, it spiked through there the other week, but look, that was major previous support and resistance going back to earlier in the year. So it was logical to presume that it would probably, at the very least, going to struggle here. And what's it done? The buyers have piled back in because it's hit the major level. So if you were short, this is an order, I'm still waiting for it to come back. But if you were short, don't be hanging on all the time to try to get in here. Remember, I started off today showing you the slide of the pound by scaling out and taking partial profits along the way. And then this last bit here, had I got in the first time, that would have been 180 pips profit. NZD, very similar, waiting for a bigger pullback, got a trend line in now, moved the fib. This is going to come down. So for next week, we would be looking, well, maybe where it is now, certainly anywhere in this area for a short. Remember, Thursday, it's Thanksgiving. So it's Thanksgiving weekend in the US, traditionally quiet, sometimes silly, but in general, most professional traders are probably not going to bother. Euro yen, messy. Aussie yen, don't like the spike, messy. CAD yen obviously suffered yesterday, no idea where it's going next. Euro pound, I need a bigger pullback. I did have, it's starting to look interesting. I haven't looked at this. So this was previous major support and resistance. If we put a trend line in here, so that's look very interesting. So we got the trend line in. So we've got 61.8 fib. We're currently at the 55 EMA. It has done today 30 odd pips worth of movement. The average is, well, it's 50 yesterday, 43. So if that got up to 83.75, I have to check the news. Can't remember if there's any news tomorrow, but that would be very interesting to short that if it gets up there today. So I might just take that one. Euro Aussie, it's stuck. It's bouncing from here. It's bouncing from there. I would watch this one around 162.80. I would actually split the entry as well. I would put half here, half there, stop above the 200. Euro New Zealand, messy. Don't like the spikes on that. That's horrible. Euro CAD, horrible. Natural gas, I was playing with this yesterday. You need to understand geopolitics for this, but we are winning. I did this with a student yesterday when we were playing around. We're trying to work out what the lot size was, and also it was technically a very important break and a breakout and a pullback. But don't be piling into this. I was going to trade natural gas last year, and then I stumbled across a guy on the internet, I think it was on Twitter, Swedish guy who specializes in natural gas and energy. And he was saying, for God's sake, don't get caught up in this at the minute because all the EU storage tanks are full. And last winter, the winter was mild, so they didn't need it as much. But just again, it's M2, breakout, pullback, break of major area, pullback into fibs. I had the stop initially in here, below that low there and that trend line. You could have gone to here. So even going from there, you're risking 10 units to make 3 times the risk. So it was just a bit of fun. Right, any questions? Anything on any topic you want to ask me, ask now while I have another sip of my tea. Brendan says, I'm coming back from a break on trade in the Forex market. What provider are you using for funded challenges that supports M2 and Earth and Sky? I asked Ashley this morning, actually. Ashley he likes the 5%ers, but I'm not sure if you have to do that on MT5. FX2, if not, Brendan, there's a link inside the website, members there for FX2. They're solid and you can use it on MT4. If you're just coming back, there was a young guy in the forum the other day, one of Ashley's private guys, and he's a young guy, but I was really impressed because he was quite sensible in that he said, I'm just coming back, but I am not going to jump in. And I would recommend, Brendan, if you're just coming back, do not go jumping in because this is a bit crazy wild at the moment and you need to be. So this is him. I think he's called Alex. Oh, Gabriel. I think Gabriel's from Austria or Germany. So he's just saying he's been doing his exams. He hasn't traded for a while. Exam stress is over. Finally can concentrate on the Forex. Since I haven't been active for long, he's just basically going to sit it out for a while and get back in the flow. Years ago, tell the story. The first time I went on holiday for a decent period of time, and my wife wouldn't let me go near the computer for 3 weeks. And I came back, and honestly, if I came back today after what went on yesterday, I would be thinking, what the hell's going on here? And it takes time to get back into the flow of things. So just be careful about diving in, even going onto a funded, or if you do with the funded account. What I've done with funded accounts is generally start off risking 0.5% until you get, say, 2% in front and then increasing the risk. But don't be piling in thinking it's easy. And I mean, there are offers all over the place at the moment. I think FX2 has got a crazy offer on as well. FX2. Funding programs. FX2 10K starter is $40. It's for note. Actually, for $40, you might even be worth doing it, Brendan. At least you start off properly and following the rules, because if you break the rules, you're out. Rohit says, to buy crypto in Singapore, can you suggest the best exchange? What I'm going to do there is pass that one over to Ishak. Ishak, which is the best broker to buy crypto in Singapore? Zoe says 5% is MT5, but do your analysis on the usual MT4 Global Prime. Yeah, I do all my analysis on, well, I still use Think Forex for global analysis, but I don't have an account with them anymore. But I use this one, and Global Prime are virtually the same. The only thing with Global Prime now, it's primarily for Aussies. If you're overseas, you can't go through the ASIC regulated one. So I have gone to Tickmill. Anything else? Anything else? Normally I leave Ashley with 15 minutes to do a 25-minute spread, and I've run out of things to say, which is unusual for me. Maybe let's have a quick look actually. Well, if anyone's got any questions, I'm going to have a look on here and see. Right. So I do this every day. This is why I use TradingView. So I'm looking at gold. I'm looking at the DAXI to see what's going on. And I say this was really useful yesterday because everything went red and it was like, what the hell? Even the interest on the 10-year note and the 2-year notes come down, and the 2-year note is trying at the minute to break that line. That's very significant for the dollar. And this is the 10-year note has broken and gapped down, which is good for the American economy because it means that they can sell their bonds for a lesser interest rate. Why it's happened, don't know. Maybe it's the new Treasury Secretary. S&P indecision candle at the top of a big move. Nasdaq the same. US 30 did make a new high, did the US 30, and still trying now. That's the industrial. So again, have a look at US 30 because which industries are likely to do well under Trump? Gold we've had a look at, big reversal candle. Silver the same. This is my silver stocks, and now I am watching all my mining stocks again for big pullbacks, and I have an alarm set on EXK here, which ties in with silver being down around 30 bucks. Because if I get in here, the 55 is a bit of a concern, but if I get in here, I can make 35% to the recent high. With stocks, I buy stocks based on if I can make 25% in a relatively short space of time. If I can't make 25%, I don't buy it. I don't buy the FANG stocks. I'm not buying anything that I can make 5% on and hope and pray I get a 2% dividend. I have zero interest. I want to catch a big one. And this is another one. I've shown you this many times before. I have the COVID low on all charts, all stocks. Bought this January this year, and at its peak, it was up 270%. 270%. At the same time, silver was up 65%. So yes, the silver's gone up, and more than it would normally do in 3 or 4 years, but made far more money in a way, leveraging, but not using leverage on this. I just bought the stock and I took profit on the way, took profit, bought some more in here, bought some more in here, took profit, and thinking to buy more now. Not financial advice. I have about 10 gold stocks and gold and silver mining stocks, and I've explained that to you before as well. Brendan says, don't forget NVIDIA. I have not any interest at all in NVIDIA. I missed it, not going to chase it. I keep hearing little rumors that there's some kind of accountancy games that they're playing. I mean, it's funny, there's one today. There's one of the big companies, they've delayed their accounts because they've found 153 million discrepancy in in their accounting. Somebody's underestimated or hidden $153 million worth of invoices. Here we go. And Macy's say an employee hid more than 132 million in delivery expenses. Well, he wasn't doing Uber Eats, was he? I've not read the story yet, but I missed NVIDIA. I missed it. I don't chase anything. If you miss it, it doesn't matter. There's plenty of other things to go for. Where's my chart gone now for NVIDIA? It's up at all-time highs. Why would you want to buy it up here? Obviously, this was the place and the time to buy it. I wasn't focusing on it. Missed it. It's gone. If it came back down to 100, then I would be interested, because at 100, it's cheap. You know, it's the same. What everybody needs to remember, this is an auction that's going on here. And if it comes down here, all the buyers want to get back involved, because everybody now thinks, well, down here, well, that's cheap. I'm going to buy that. Like going to the Christmas sales, or it's like Black Friday sales. At what level do you get? Oh, well, that's interesting, because I've got the 200 EMA in there. I could probably put a trend line in from down below here to here. Ooh, look. But here, who wants to buy it here? What's the point? If I'm lucky and it goes back up, I might make 10%. Now, it could shoot to 200, but you've got to think all the time, the reward potential versus the risk ain't there. The reward potential versus the risk here is, because even if it goes lower, I would buy some more if I think that it's still a solid company and there's nothing wrong with their accounts. Clive says, thanks. You're welcome. I need to get on. Marcel, I will send you the link. I will see you at 1 o'clock UK time. Alon, I'm not sure what's been arranged with Ashley and yourself, but I am away for a few days, and then I'm going to Lanzarote for a few weeks on Saturday. So I'm not sure if you want to get together. If so, let me know, but I can't do it on Saturday because I will be on a hairy plane. If not, Ashley will be available. Righty-ho, thank you all for attending. I hope you enjoyed today's session. We'll put the recording as ever in the blog later today when Ashley gets back. I will edit the video now, and then he will put some notes with it, and we'll put some of the links to some of the articles I've shared with you today as well as. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something useful, and start joining the dots. Start using logic and common sense. Doesn't always work in Forex, as it shows, but generally there is some sense and rhyme and reason to all of this, certainly more so in stocks and in crypto, as daft as it sounds, and certainly in metals, mining stocks. Okay, you are welcome. Hans Ark, says Alvin. Thanks for misspelling. Hans Ark. Okay, see you all next time. Bye-bye now.